Hello, church family. I hope this is a good sound. We won't know till we watch it later, but we wanted to gather today, and I'm being the tech guy, and talk about the Last Supper. And specifically, one of the things that is interesting to me is understanding the cups. So this is Mr. Priestley. I actually introduced you this time, Roger, and he actually goes around to local churches and has taught the Seder. And so go ahead and talk to us and teach us more about the Passover and these cups that Christ grabbed during that time.
All right. So, what would take place, just to explain who we're talking about, John was standing down the river, and Jesus approaches to be baptized. And he introduces Jesus. And the word that he uses, the name that he uses is, "Behold, the Lamb of God."
Yep.
And that was in John 1:29, as that's the first introduction. So why is that important? The Lamb of God. The Lamb of God is a name that's used for the very lamb that's used at Passover. The lamb that would be taken into the house for the Passover meal, they would be sacrificed. Now, the sacrifice that was made, as we read the first Passover in Egypt, that was it was sacrificed and the blood was applied to the doorpost.
Mm-hmm.
The importance of that, the doorpost that had the blood on it, everyone in that house would be saved from this plague. The plague, what plague? The plague of death. It was a showdown that was taking place in Egypt.
Oh yeah.
It was a showdown of the gods of Egypt, right, against the God of Israel.
Which is how we attacked the river, the fleas, the cattle, the sky, absolutely, the sun, everything like that.
Right, and then so the final plague was the death that would be on the firstborn. So even if it was for the Pharaoh of Egypt, if his son was under the blood, he would be saved from this death. So in 1 Corinthians 5:7-8, it says, "Purge out therefore the leaven that may be a new lump, as ye are unleavened. For even Christ our Passover is sacrificed for us. Therefore, let us keep the feast, not with old leaven, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth." Notice that it says Christ our Passover. So there's part of our connection, as those of us that don't know much about Passover, don't really think about that, that Christ is our Passover. So there's part of our connection that comes into that. So don't miss that connection between those. But Passover is a meal that's observed for generations.
Yes.
And it's a reminder each and every time that they go to this.
It's a long meal.
It's a very long meal. It's filled with a lot of ceremony, but everything about it points to Christ.
Everything.
Now, we as Christians may not remember or know of the connection, but in Matthew 26:17, I wanted to point this out to you, that Jesus says, and the disciples did as Jesus had appointed them. He sent them over to make ready. He said that they should make ready for the Passover. That's in 26:17. So the importance of making ready for the Passover, there was a big preparation before they would gather for the meal. And part of this preparation was to clean out all the leaven in their house. There's a connection to what leaven means, and that is it's a symbol of sin. I think that this is a good point for all of us to remember, to remove the sin from our lives. And but this is a preparation for the meal that is known as the Last Supper or the Lord's Supper, where we get our communion, just as you were saying. In Matthew 26:26, it says, "And they were eating, and Jesus took the bread and blessed it and broke it and gave it to the disciples and said, 'Take, eat, this is my body.'" And we have a sample of what the unleavened matzah is.
Okay. Yeah.
But we wanted to focus today on not the matzah as much as what we do the wine. So we were talking about the cups.
Yes.
And after the unleavened bread, and they took in that and had that, he presented the cup, and he said to remember him in this. He said, "This is my blood." Now, let me read from Matthew 26, 27, and 29. It says that he took the cup and gave thanks, and he gave it to them, saying, "Drink ye all of it, for this is my blood of the New Testament," or New Covenant would be
Right.
another way to say that, "which is shed for many for the remission of sin. But I say unto you, I will not drink henceforth of this fruit of the vine until the day when I drink it anew with you in my Father's kingdom." So let me explain about the cups. This cup would be filled 4 times through the ritual.
I went to church my entire life and never heard that until my 20s.
Really?
Until my 20s, we never talked about the fact that there was multiple cups and what they represented. So what did the first cup that they would have taken that night represent?
Okay. So each one of them have a name.
Okay.
And the first cup is the cup of sanctification. And then the next cup is the cup of deliverance. And the third cup is a cup of redemption. And by tradition, we believe that Jesus was holding up this third cup,
Okay.
the cup of redemption,
Right.
held by our Redeemer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Isn't
Symbolizing that only he can be this cup represents the new covenant is
Right.
through him. Okay.
Absolutely. So the beauty of this is that he holds this up and presents it to his disciples, explaining that this is my blood. He's joining into the Passover with them, explaining himself as being the Passover lamb. He's the sacrifice that's being presented for them. And this is part of the remembrance. So every time we come to the Lord's table, every time we have communion, it's to commemorate this very thing. And remember, we're to examine for the sins in our lives too.
For the leaven in our life.
Absolutely. So, but the interesting thing too, let me join in with this as part of the traditional saying of what the Jewish practice is. Not only is the third cup part of the Passover,
I'm going to move this so they can
But-
see that cup.
it's also part of a betrothal ceremony.
Okay.
They would have a cup of wine as part of a betrothal, which is an agreement into marriage, before marriage. As you remember, that Mary was betrothed to Joseph, as it says in the scriptures. They weren't united in marriage yet.
Mhm.
When the marriage ceremony takes place, the next time they drink of the cup, it's in the marriage ceremony. So Jesus, could it be that Jesus was saying to his disciples at that time that here is this cup as part of the betrothal with the church, and then I won't drink of it again until we're in the kingdom at the marriage supper of the
Right.
Lamb.
The great supper.
Right.
The supper we're all waiting for, that fourth cup that he didn't partake of,
Right.
symbolizing that he's going to take that with us.
Which the fourth cup, interestingly enough, is a cup of restoration or praise. And these are all names that are used today of anybody that practice a Passover. They know all these different cups. So it's interesting that it's a time of praise when everything is finished for the union between the church being united with Christ,
and we're finally restored.
finally restored.
Back in God's
Yes.
presence from the fall of man.
Absolutely.
So what a beautiful picture. As you get ready, many of you are going to partake of it this Sunday at church. We're going to do the Lord's Supper, and it represents, this is my New Testament. This is the covenant. The law is completed through Christ, and it is only through Jesus Christ that we can have, what was the third cup called? Redemption? Redemption. And that is what the third cup represents. Anything else to add to that?
It's for the redeemed.
For the redeemed. Look forward to hearing your thoughts on that. Talk to you all later.